Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Email me for pricing at tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a 2018 launch from the young independent brand Czapek. This is the Faubourg de Cracovie chronograph. It was their first chronograph model. 41.5 millimeters in stainless steel. It is a lovely example of a tablissage done right. More on that in a moment. So 41.5 millimeters in diameter. It's 13.8 millimeters thickened from lug tip to lug tip, 48.8 millimeters, with a broad and contemporary 22 millimeters the spacing between the lugs. Now, on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it wears well. I would recommend it for wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger. You can see the lugs aren't quite out to the edge of my wrist, and they have a curvature that works well to mitigate fit issues. The watch is neither thick nor thin, but it has a rather sheer case and a cantilevered bezel, so let's say it'll fit over any jacket cuff, maybe not the tightest of dress sleeves. Taking a look at the strap, you can see that the lugs are drilled very close to the case to improve fit, taking the pivot centers of the strap as close inboard as possible. As a result, curved spring bars are used to create a more integrated look with less daylight between strap and case, but also to prevent any impediment to the motion of the strap. It can pull straight down out of the lugs for best fit on a small wrist. We have large rectangular scale alligator leather of the finest quality. You can see these scales are really large and symmetrical. It's a dark blue with a semi-gloss finish. There is some bolstering to give it volume, and we have a folded edge. We also have on the bottom a rubberized inlay. And you can see that we also have a buckle. By the way, the rubberized inlay, that's there to protect the wrist and the strap itself. The wrist gets a nice supple feel of vulcanized rubber. The strap gets isolated from the heat, sweat, moisture, and grit of the wrist, so the strap will last longer. You can see no crimping, no gouging. This is a brand new Czapek factory strap. Taking a quick look at the buckle, you can see it is a double deployant in steel. It is actually a twin trigger design, and the triggers sit just underneath the clasp body. You could see the buckle is Czapek branded, and we have a little bit of satination on the side for contrast, but for the most part, the dominant finishing here is satination. Close it all up. By the way, a double fold clasp is less likely to pinch a small wrist, and you can see the underside of the clasp is curved to match the wrist. We have a case with evacuated profiles. You can see that it's been evacuated, and then this channel has been media blasted to contrast nicely with the satin finish of the lip of the bezel, and then the polish that you find on the remainder of the case flank, as well as the conical profile of the bezel. We have satination flanking the crown. We have these two little crown guard outcroppings. Then we have the pushers. Note that there's a little bevel on the edge of the pushers that wraps all the way around. That's excellent attention to detail. It's true the Czapek name dates back to 1815. Czapek, one of two original names associated with the company that became Patek Philippe. Initially, it was Patek and Czapek, and both of them went on to practice independently. This is a revival of the Czapek side of the business, and they started making watches again in the modern era in 2015 again. 2018, this watch launches as their first chronograph. We have a dramatically cambered and boxed sapphire that no doubt was an expensive piece to spec, and a lovely dial. You could see a tablissage, and that means taking the best pieces together and then assembling them under one roof. So this is not a manufacturer, nor do they pretend to be one. The case is made by a case supplier. You could see the maker's mark of Vaucher manufacturer on the base plate of the movement. That's who supplies the movement. It's a Seed VMF 6710 doing business here as the SXH3. And then we have a dial by Metalem, which is one of the best dial makers in Switzerland. And you know that because it says Metalem right at the base of the dial. We have guilloche mat, and indeed this is real rose lathe guilloche, creating this ricochet pattern. This is reductive, not stamped. This is the real thing. We have concentric patterns inside the sub-registers. We also have instantaneous jumping minutes. It's a very high-grade movement. You can see individual applied indices. We have lovely hands that are a fusion of lancet and, one might say, a fusion of lancet and alpha. We'll call them delta hands. We'll do a quick loom shot just so there can be no doubt that this watch is easy to read in the dark. And then we have a combination of hacking seconds, and then we also have a quick set date with a wonderful typeface created exclusively for that date. Now, I mentioned instantaneous jumping minutes. You're going to see it right here. This is a super high-grade automatic chronograph caliber from Vaucher, which is the movement arm of Parmigiani Fleurier. Vaucher is one of the great manufacturers in the business. The watch was a limited edition of 18 pieces, as you see here. L'heure bleue is the hour between the twilights. So at twilight, in the morning and the evening, l'heure bleue is a nautical term for that hour when the sky has a blue hue, and that inspires the blue of the dials. That's where that blue comes from. It is l'heure bleue. Now, the movement. As you can see, it's an automatic winder. What you can't see is that it's got a 65-hour power reserve and an El Primero-like beat rate of 36,000 vibrations per hour, so the chronograph can resolve to 1/10 of a second. The balance is free-sprung, and it has a full bridge, so it's a very shock-tolerant movement that was designed with sports watches in mind. It's a 42-joule movement adjusted in 5 positions, which is the chronometer standard, and that matters here because this watch has a movement that is also certified as a COSC Swiss chronometer. Now, if you look, you can see the column wheel that cycles the functions of the watch. It is a very solid, crisp feeling column wheel. And then we also have a vertical clutch, which is a nice thing to have because the vertical clutch engages smoothly. And by the way, I think I might have said this watch is 30 meters water resistant. It is in fact 50 meters water resistant. The vertical clutch allows you to start the chronograph without any jump or stagger to the seconds hand. The column wheel allows you to really feel and hear the action for the best tactile impression. Because the vertical clutch has no additional wear, tear, or play when it's engaged, you can leave the chronograph engaged full-time on a vertical clutch mechanism. You can see the movement's finished with a number of different elements. We have media blasting as well as polish on the rotor, solarization atop the bearing at the center of the rotor. You can see satination on the stud holder as well as the bridge flanking the pivot jewel at center. We have media blasting on the bridges, and then you can see that there is a anglage on the hollows as well as the edges of the bridges. So it's nicely executed. It's a mixture of hand and mechanical finish, all of it immaculately applied and attractively arranged. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.